Welcome to the County Compass, Columbia County's guide to news, voices, and perspectives, hosted by County Manager Scott Johnson. This podcast is your behind-the-scenes look at what's happening in county government and across our community. We'll talk about the services, projects, and decisions that make Columbia County a great place to live. We're glad you're here. Thanks for listening to the County Compass. Now, here's Scott Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the County Compass. We are so glad to have our faithful followers back with us. And for those of you that may be new to the podcast, we welcome you as well and hope you'll find this information useful for everybody. Make sure you subscribe, like what we're doing here so we can definitely keep this going and we can get the information out about things that are happening in Columbia County. So on today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into really one of the most fascinating things about how our government works. We're going to talk about how a bill becomes a law. In Columbia County, we talked about it in previous episodes about some of the things that are happening in Columbia County and some of our reasons for needing state laws passed as opposed to just passing things at the county level. So today will be a deeper dive about that process. And it really is sparked by my recent attendance to the ACCG, which is Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. They have an annual Capital Connection Conference where really leaders from all over the state, from county government, will all convene in Atlanta and go over the legislation, go over the things that are pending or things that they're following or things that they like or don't like. So I was recently able to do that and speak with several of our legislators, not just our local delegation, but really legislators from all over the state. Trying to do things that are in the best interest of Columbia County. So we're going to take that deep dive into how that idea gets transformed into a law. We talked about peaches last week. If you didn't hear that episode, go back and listen to our story about Jabez Stevens, the peach farmer in Columbia County. And I was kind of trying to take a bit from that. And so a law is kind of like, think of taking a peach from the orchard and then getting it shipped and all the way to the kitchen table. And without getting it squished or bruised up too bad where it's not not appealing anymore or forgotten in the back of the fridge. These bills are like that. They all start on a journey every year, and then some of them get squished, some of them get bruised, some of them just get forgotten. But the good ones make it to your table, and then you can enjoy those fresh peaches. So we're going to walk step by step, nice and slow, every twist and turn that I can think of, that what happens in the Capitol. We're going to use our bills as an example. And as I was putting this podcast together, I was actually taken back and thinking about really my first introduction to government and politics and how things work. And when I was young, we were big on watching Saturday morning cartoons. And Saturday morning cartoons, you could always rely on Schoolhouse Rock coming on. And I'm just such a fan of the Schoolhouse Rock things. I can still sing a lot of those episodes. I know a lot of you can too that kind of grew up during that time. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about Schoolhouse Rock, just throw it in YouTube and take a look at some of these cool videos. That's how I learned the preamble to the Constitution. And to this day, I'm not sure that I can say it, but I'm pretty sure I can sing it. But I'm not going to do that to you guys. I'm not going to make you listen to my preamble to the Constitution, Schoolhouse Rock version. But I do remember the one about I'm just a bill. And it was really my first introduction to how a bill becomes a law. And the cartoon pretty much has this piece of paper, a little cartoon piece of paper explaining to this little boy what he's trying to do. And it goes through his journey. He talks about his journey and his process and what could happen to him. And then at the end of the video, he becomes a law and he's signed by the president. In this case, it's a federal bill, and Congress gets him done, and he's a law, and he's so proud of himself for what he's accomplished. And it just makes me think about all these bills that are getting thrown in the hopper every day. And are they actually going to make it to the end, or are they going to end up being that squish peach that nobody wants? So it all starts with a spark or an idea, and it can be anything. In our case, the one that we have pending this year, the one that we're working on right now, is providing much needed tax relief to our citizens through this homestead tax relief grant. When we started talking about data centers and we started talking about additional revenue in Columbia County, any economic development project that would bring us additional funds to Columbia County, we wanted to come up with a way to offset property taxes. And our commissioners were pretty clear that they wanted to eliminate the homestead property tax. So the house that you live in full time, that's your homesteaded property, it is our goal to make you pay no taxes on that property whatsoever, and for that to be offset through the Homestead Tax Relief Grant Fund. The state has the ability to do that. Governor Barnes, back in the early 2000s, I believe, actually passed this homestead tax relief grant, but it was only for the state level. It didn't allow local governments to participate in that. It was for the state to be able to provide tax relief back to its citizens, and we've seen that in several forms. I know Governor Kemp has done an outstanding job of balancing our budget and making sure that Georgia is doing well financially, and I know that we as Georgians have received rebate checks back. And it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same thing. That tax relief grant fund is set up, money's put in there, and then they're able to give that money back. But there's no mechanism, there's no way to do it in local government. So that was our spark, and that was our idea, was to provide the tax relief. When we have that, it'd be great if it could just magically become a law, but it doesn't magically become a law. It takes a state legislator to be able to carry it. In our case, State Representative Gary Richardson is the main signer or sponsor of our bill. But I will say that all the rest of our delegation was very, very, very interested in tax relief for our citizens. So all of our delegation signed on. And we were able even to get Shaw Blackman, who is the chairman of the very powerful Ways and Means Committee in the House. Representative Blackman is an outstanding legislator, a very bright individual. But to have the chairman of Ways and Means sign on to this tax bill was a big thing for us. So we're very appreciative for him for that, very appreciative to Representative Richardson, and then all the rest of the local Columbia County delegation for all that they're doing to work this thing through. So it starts out with a representative. It can be a senator as well, but in our case, we started out with a representative. It started on that side. And for us, we're going to be talking specifically today about House Bill 1156 and House Resolution 1178. Those are the two bills that we need to be able to get this homestead tax relief grant through. So why two bills? Why do we need two pieces of law, not just one piece of law? Well, it's really, really complicated, but I guess the short answer is House resolutions are necessary if you need a constitutional amendment, and that's something that the voters would have to vote on ultimately. But anytime you have a constitutional amendment, it has to go on a House resolution, or it has to start with a resolution, and then it has to work its way through both chambers, and then it goes to the voters. And the unique thing about a House resolution as opposed to a House bill needs a simple majority to pass, or a Senate bill needs a simple majority to pass each chamber. But a House resolution or a Senate resolution, certainly as it relates to what we're talking about here about taxation, requires a 2/3 vote, which means it really has to cross party lines, because neither the Georgia House nor the Georgia Senate are 2/3 of either party. So it requires people to work together, which is great. But we've seen recently this week, I believe there was another constitutional amendment that came up, and it did not get the 2/3 that it needed to be able to pass. So we're not sure what's going to happen with our bill, but we have two going, the House resolution and the House bill. The House resolution, as I just described, is the constitutional amendment. And what are we trying to amend to the Constitution? The Constitution currently says in Georgia that the Homestead Tax Relief Grant Fund is capped at $18,000. And all we're asking to do is remove that cap so we can give you back all of your taxes, not just a portion of your taxes. So that's the resolution. And then the House bill is the mechanism by which we have to follow, what we have to do exactly to be able to get this money back to you through the Homestead Tax Relief Grant. So very specific items that have to go into this. And the House bill, I guess, is the vessel that we need to be able to get us there. The House resolution changes the Constitution to allow it to happen. So that's where we are. Two bills. So back to the process. So we spoke with Representative Richardson several months ago and basically said, hey, we need this done. He agreed. He talked to other members of the delegation. So it, again, starts with the idea. And his first step in this process is a place called Legislative Council. Now, what Legislative Council is, it's a group of nonpartisan, really smart attorneys and staffers who live and breathe Georgia statutes. They know everything there is to know about the law. They have the means to research it and get things done. So they research every existing law on the topic. So in this case, this is a tax bill, and they go in and they look for the best way to be able to write the law for it to make sense for the people that are trying to get it done. So they sit down with Representative Richardson, they go over his legislation, they ask him what he wants, and then they craft it into a bill. So you'll have a legislative council or an LC number where legislative council has worked on this piece of legislation. Not a bill yet, so it doesn't have a bill number. It's just a draft through legislative council. But they carefully draft the bill's language, and they have to look at every word, every comma, because one misplaced phrase or one misplaced comma or the wrong word, one small thing could derail the entire bill and derail the entire process. So that's what they do in legislative council, and then they polish it up. And then once that happens, they'll give it back to the legislator, and the legislator will take it to the clerk of the House of Representatives. If in our case it's the House, the other side would be the Senate. So he'll take it to the clerk of the House or the Secretary of the Senate in that case. And then now the idea will have a number. Now the idea will turn into a bill. And in our case, it was House Bill 1156, House Resolution 1178. They put those bills into what's affectionately or maybe sarcastically known as the hopper. And the hopper is really just a literal tray or a digital queue where bills wait their turn to be read and to be heard. So it goes into the hopper, and then on the very next legislative day, the bill will get its first reading. So the presiding officer of the House, in our case, that is the Speaker of the House, and that Speaker is John Burns. Representative Burns, or Speaker Burns, is an outstanding legislator. He's been doing this for a long time. He's a very bright man, loves Georgia, doing everything he can for Georgians. We are very fortunate to have Speaker Burns at the helm. I've had the opportunity to get to know him better and his family. So just a great man all around. I want to throw out the prop. Speaker, I hope you're listening to this, but if you're not, if anybody knows Speaker Burns, let him know we were talking good about him, because the man works extremely hard, as do the rest of our legislators, to do the best for Georgians. So Speaker Burns will go tell the clerk to read the title aloud. No debate, no drama, nothing like that. It's really just a process. And if you ever watch it, and you can watch the Georgia's legislative action in real time, you can go to the website and pull up the video of any committee meeting, any subcommittee meeting, the active what's going on in the House. It gives you a whole list of all the laws and what will be heard that day and what will be debated. So you can actually watch that in real time. So the clerk will read the caption, and it's just in the House only, and that's first reading. And then the bill has to have a second reading. So the following day, it'll do it again, just getting ready to be able to move forward. All right. Now the real test begins. So once it's heard, the Speaker will assign the bill to a standing committee that matches its topic. So, Transportation Committee for road fixes. If it's school stuff, it'd be education. If it was a environmental bill, it may be natural resources. But in our case, because it's a tax bill, it gets assigned to the Ways and Means Committee in the House. Committees are where most bills, all bills go, but it's really where a lot of dreams kind of die quietly in committee. Seriously, thousands of bills get filed each session, and only a fraction of them will actually make it all the way through committee. But in committees where the real work happens, so it starts out with subcommittee, and the subcommittee members will dive deep into the subject. They'll hold public hearings. They'll have experts come testify. Citizens can speak up. You can show up at the Capitol anytime you want to speak for or against any bill that may be in committee. The lobbyists will present arguments with our representative. In our case, we have lobbyists that actually work with Columbia County, and these are the professionals in Atlanta that know how to get the job done and know how to move bills along. So they'll speak up for the bill, and then everybody debates what's going on. And so once that's done, it's either passed or not passed on to the full Ways and Means Committee. Once it gets in full committee, it'll kind of be presented again and maybe beat up or talked about again and maybe something added or whatever the case may be. But it works its way through this process. And then when everything is said and done, the committee can then vote to either do pass, which means it's good to go, or they can do pass by committee substitute, which means that they've made some changes there in committee that they need to add to the bill, or do not pass, which is kind of the kiss of death. Or the other thing they can do is they just let it sit until time runs out. So committee don't even have to take the bill up. If it's a bill that's been assigned to committee and hadn't seen the light of day, there's no vote needed for that. So it'll just not make it this time, and then that legislator will have to go back and do it again. Now, fortunately for us, I'm going to give you the update as we kind of go through the process. We've been through subcommittee. We've been through the full Ways and Means Committee. So now we're going to the next step. So when it survives, it hits the floor for a third reading. And in the House, you have the Rules Committee. And again, a very powerful committee in the House. The Rules Committee gets to decide which bills get to move forward, which bills get debated, how long, what amendments are allowed or not allowed or whatever. It's kind of like a traffic cop. When you're out there directing traffic, they're kind of waving people on and like, you get to go, but you guys need to just wait over here for a little while so you can just stay stuck in traffic forever while we let the other side flow. That's what the Rules Chairman of the Rules Committee does. Again, they do great work in the House. A little bit different on the Senate side, a little more fluid, but basically the same thing. So once that's done, hopefully Rules will assign it or allow it to go to the floor. And once it goes to the floor, the bill sponsor will go up to the well and present the bill, and then there will be actual floor debate. So they can take questions from other representatives. There won't be anybody from the public participating at this point. So the public's input is only at committee level. Once it gets to the floor of the House, it's going to be up to the representatives or the legislators to move the bill forward or not. So they'll talk about it. And sometimes, emotions run high. We saw one this week where there was a long debate over a constitutional amendment. It's another case where we're trying to do, let's say the legislators are trying to provide tax relief, but it's complex. I mean, you have to have enough money to be able to run government. We all know that. We just have to figure out the best way to do it. And that's what they're trying to do, and they're trying to take it off the backs of property taxpayers. So it's kind of similar to our bill, but unfortunately, for the sponsors of the bill, that bill did not make it through the constitutional amendment. But it still has time. Halfway through the legislative session, or the day that they designate, is what's called crossover day. Now, as I'm actually recording this podcast right now, I will tell you today is crossover day. So once you hear this or see this, it will be after crossover day. So I can't tell you what's going to happen because I don't know yet, but our bill is hopefully headed to the floor today for that debate and that vote. Bills have to get through one side or the other by crossover. So if they don't get there by crossover, then the bill is not going to make it this session. The only way for it possibly to make it would be to tack the language into another bill that did make it, and then there's lots of other things you have to do. So we have our fingers crossed in Columbia County that we're going to be able to get our bill through crossover today and hopefully over to the Senate side, and then we'll start working our senators to kind of help us along with it. So, again, the bill will need once Rules lets it go, the House bill, 1156, will need a simple majority. So as long as more vote for it than against it, that'll pass. And the constitutional amendment, should it go to the floor, that will need a 2/3 vote. So a little bit different there as those two work their way through the process. And then whatever makes it goes over to the Senate side. Okay. And then guess what? It starts all over again. It goes right back through the gauntlet. It goes right back through the committee. So it'll be assigned to a committee. There'll be hearings. There'll be public input on it. There may be possible amendments. And then hopefully it gets back to the floor for a debate and then a vote. And when it's all said and done, both the House and the Senate must pass an identical version of the bill. So whatever that is, whatever that language is, it has to be identical. If the second chamber makes even a tiny change, so in our case, let's say that we send our bill over to the Senate side, and the Senate side, they want to change a few things around. If they do that, even a punctuation mark, a comma, or a word, one word, then the bill heads to what's called conference committee. Conference committee is made up of 3 members from each chamber, and they kind of lock themselves in a room to hammer out a compromise on the bill. So once it goes through conference committee, both chambers can then vote on the final conference report. And once that's done, no more amendments are allowed. So it's kind of ready to go, good to go now. And now the bill is enrolled. That means there's an official clean copy prepared. It's going to be signed by all the legislative leaders, and it's going to make its way to the governor's desk. Okay, so once it gets to the governor's desk, the governor has some options. He can sign it, and if he signs it, it becomes law on the spot, or if there's an effective date in the bill, it becomes law immediately or on the effective date. He can veto it, which means that the governor's not in favor of this particular legislation, which will return it to the originating chamber. And the only way to override this would be a 2/3 vote of both chambers. That rarely happens. It's very, very tough for you to get 2/3 on both sides to overturn a veto. The governor can also do nothing. This happens this is something that's not unique to Georgia, but I think and I don't know that it happens everywhere, but in Georgia, if the governor neither signs the bill or vetoes it, the bill becomes a law anyway after a set period. During session is quick, but after the adjournment, the governor has 40 days post-session to act on the law, or it becomes law automatically. It's called a pocket approval, but typically the governor will sign these bills. Once it's law, it'll be published. It'll be published in the Georgia law book. It'll be what we call codified, so now it's in the code, and it becomes a law, and it's what we have to do. It'll be our roadmap then to provide tax relief to our citizens. Let's say that it doesn't pass. What happens? We have to start all over again next year. It goes back to the very beginning, and we have to go back through every part of the process and hopefully figure out why it didn't pass or who had a problem with it, and then potentially work with those folks to be able to get what we need to be able to get the law over the finish line. Okay, so where are we now? We are at crossover. Our bill has made it through subcommittee, full committee. We are hoping that we can get it on the floor today, which again, when you're seeing this, it'll be after that. So we'll give you an update in future episodes. And we hope we can get it across. Now, there's lots of reasons why people will vote against something, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're against tax relief. There are lots of things at play in the Capitol, people working together, people trying to get support for their bills. So it's one of those trade-offs, hey, if you can support my bill, I'll support your bill, and if you can't, then I'm not. So those things all happen. That's the politics of it. Nobody likes the politics of it, but it's a reality that we have to have that. We have at least two political parties represented in the Georgia House of Representatives and the Georgia Senate, the Republicans and the Democrats. Oftentimes they're on the same page, but there are times that they don't agree. Maybe it's philosophically, or maybe it's very specific to an idea or an issue. But whatever the case may be, they don't agree, and that's okay. That's what makes our government work well. So we know that our bill, it may have a little bit of an uphill battle. There may be some questions or issues with it, but we're going to do everything we can do to get it through. So that's the journey, really, from a county commissioner's passion or our board's passion to reduce property taxes to a black letter law that is now in the books. Now, again, remember, most bills don't even survive. Thousands of bills are filed every single year, and most of them don't get there. And it's designed to be deliberate and tough, because when a bill does pass, when it does become law, it reflects compromise, it reflects persistence, it really reflects the will of Georgians working together. So we hope that that's the case for us, and we hope to get our bill across the finish line. More to come on that in future episodes, so make sure that you tune in. So that's really the long and the short of how things happen at our Georgia Capitol, and very specific about the bills that we're trying to get passed in Columbia County and why. So as promised, the most ridiculous thing I've heard lately, I'll try to end the podcast with that. Some of you may have seen or heard that this week we got a check from the Development Authority of Columbia County for almost $8.4 million. And that check was presented to me on behalf of the county commission, and I got to accept that on behalf of the citizens of Columbia County to be deposited into the county coffers. And why did we get a check? Why did the Development Authority owe $8.4 million? What's the story behind that? Well, the county has worked in conjunction with the Development Authority for years to build out our industrial park. and White Oak Industrial Park on Highway 221, just off of I-20 at the Harlem Appling exit there. Amazon is there, Club Car is there, some other things are looking there as well. But before data centers ever came along, we had to buy that land and we had to put in infrastructure improvements. So we had to put in roads, we had to put in stormwater drains, we had to put in our ponds, we had to put in water lines, we had to put in sewer lines, and all that stuff costs money. So as we're investing in this, it was our idea that hopefully one day, if the property ever got sold, that we would get our money back. We would get our investment back. Now, the investment's made a number of ways. Some of it's made with property tax money. Some of it's made with sales tax money. If there was a SPLOST project, if there was a capital improvement fund money available, lots of different ways that the money was spent. Maybe water utility participated in some of this. So in that case, they would need to be reimbursed for their piece. So lots of different players participating. But over the years, we found out that we have invested $8.4 million into the property out there. That's the county's piece. That's not count what the Development Authority may have spent or bought or did whatever. That's just what the Columbia County Board of Commissioners, through any of our departments, have invested in White Oak out there. Was almost $8.4 million, $8.38 million. So we got the check from the Development Authority yesterday. After they sold the land for a profit, they were able to reimburse the county for everything that we did. And let me just say that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you're making an investment in the community just for the investment in the community, and you don't get any of your money back. So kind of keep that in mind that this isn't something that happens all the time, but it's certainly our goal to be able to recapture and recoup as much as we can. And in this case, we were able to get back everything we've ever invested. And again, let me go on record and say this. This is not money that Columbia County Board of Commissioners invested in data centers or bringing data centers here. It has nothing to do with data centers other than the developer that purchased the land for the future data center did it at a price that allowed us to become whole again. So we got the money back. Back to the most ridiculous thing. You put it out there on Facebook, and then people like to take your photograph and make memes, and they like to try to talk bad about the county, and they try to say that the county's greedy, and what are we going to do with the money? And then there's all kinds of sarcastic remarks about, if you break it up among every taxpayer in Columbia County, it's only going to be a few dollars each, and, what a waste of time. And, here I am thinking we're doing something good. We're doing something good for the county, getting this money back that we've invested, and it was a smart investment because obviously it's paying off, for us. But there are people that have issue with it, and they're allowed to. There's no problem with that. You're allowed to have issue with it. But people had issue with it. But, folks, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous to think that anybody is putting this money in their pocket. When I got that check, I made a beeline to my finance director and handed it to her personally and told her we need to get that check in the bank. I'm not getting paid for this. The commissioners are not getting paid for this. And I know it's just people talking, but when somebody sends me a screenshot of how much of that money is the county manager going to get, and then somebody else responds, well, you can bet it's going to be the majority of it. Folks, it's simply not true, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So I like to finish up the podcast with that every week because nothing surprises me anymore. But for anybody to think that any member of the Board of Commissioners or anybody on staff here in Columbia County was going to pocket any of that money, absolutely ridiculous. So there you go. Make sure you tune in next time. I hope this was beneficial for you, and I hope you learned something today. But make sure you tune in next time to hear the real stories about what's happening in Columbia County. You get to hear it straight from us. We know exactly what's going on, and we'll tell you everything we can. But until then, I'm glad to call Columbia County home, and I hope that those of you that live here, I hope you are too. Take care.
This has been The County Compass, Columbia County's guide to news, voices, and perspectives. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you taking the time to stay informed about the issues, initiatives, and people impacting our community. And we sincerely hope today's conversation helps you better understand the work being done in Columbia County. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. As always, visit Columbia County's official website or social media channels for additional information. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.